Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, a 4-day-long snowstorm drops over 1 meter of snow on Korea's eastern coastal regions, marooning mountainous villages and blocking traffic in affected areas. Korea's two main rival parties have hit another rough patch following the acquittal of a former police chief suspected of whitewashing an investigation into a high-profile election scandal. The opposition Democratic Party is demanding several cabinet members step down. Plus, Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency agree on a 7-step process aimed at easing concerns over Tehran's nuclear program. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Monday, February 10th. I'm Jee-hyun in Seoul. We start with the latest on the heavy snowfall that has hit parts of the country. Snow reaching up to the hips fell on some parts of Korea's eastern coastal regions over the weekend. Fortunately, no deaths or of injuries have been reported, but the sheer amount of snow is more major inconvenience to local residents. Our Kwon So-hwa has the latest.
Silent but enormous. Over 1 meter of snow has piled up over the last 5 days in parts of Korea's eastern coastal regions. Currently, there are heavy snow advisories and warnings in effect in most coastal areas of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsangbuk-do provinces, and also in parts of Gyeongsangnam-do province further south. So far, the biggest accumulation has been recorded in Gangwon province's Jinburyong and Mishiryong, which received 107 and 104 centimeters respectively, and over 90 centimeters has fallen in Gangneung. The snow has caused widespread damage and inconvenience to local residents. Mountainous areas have been blocked off and traffic is being restricted. More than 40 schools will be closed on Monday, while around a dozen have postponed entrance and graduation ceremonies. Numerous facilities, especially greenhouses, have collapsed under the sheer weight of the snow.
The tomatoes have all gone bad. Even if new tomatoes sprout in this cold, it'll be impossible to restore the greenhouse and get them growing as before.
While residents are busy shoving snow off their cars and homes, government officials, police, and the military are helping out in the affected regions. Korea isn't the only country in the region under a thick blanket of snow. A snowstorm hit Japan over the weekend, resulting in 11 deaths in 8 regions, most related in vehicle accidents. Well over 1,000 people were injured. The first heavy snow warning in 13 years was issued in Tokyo as 27 centimeters accumulated, the most in almost half a century. Public transportation services were paralyzed, including at Tokyo's Haneda Airport, where along with the snow, gusty winds blew at up to 75 kilometers an hour. As the low-pressure system moves away from Japan, Korea's eastern coastal regions are forecast to see more snow through this weekend. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
A delegation from a South Korean consortium will visit North Korea this week for discussions on a joint railway project between Pyongyang and Moscow. A South Korean government official said Sunday that 18 officials from the state-run rail operator Korail, steelmaker POSCO, and Hyundai Merchant Marine will visit North Korea's northeastern port city of Najin for a field study for 3 days from Tuesday. The South Korean consortium will enter North Korea via the Russian city of Vladivostok, with Russian officials also taking part in the project. The envisioned 54-kilometer railway line will run between the Russian border town of Hasan and the North Korean port city of Najin. South Korea's involvement is part of President Park Geun-hye's push to link energy and logistics infrastructure across the continent. Pyongyang has reportedly rejected Washington's offer to send its envoy to win the release of Korean-American Kenneth Bae, who has been sentenced to 15 years of hard labor in North Korea for supposedly trying to topple the regime. Citing sources in both the U.S. and the North, Japan's Kyodo News says Pyongyang has called off U.S. human rights envoy Robert King's scheduled visit Monday to hold talks about granting amnesty to Bae. Last Friday, another Japan-based media outlet reported on King's expected visit through an interview with the detained American. The U.S. State Department only went as far to say it had offered King's visit a long time ago. Pyongyang had previously canceled King's visit in August of last year after Washington decided to deploy nuclear-capable bombers during military drills with Seoul. And here in the South, this week's interpellation session at the National Assembly looks set to be overshadowed by the acquittal late last week of the former Seoul police chief who was suspected of obstructing a police probe into a high-profile election scandal. Our Shin Se-min reports.
The presidential election meddling scandal, which had dropped out of the limelight in recent weeks, has re-emerged as a burning issue following the acquittal last Thursday of former Seoul police chief Kim Yong-pan. Kim was charged with scaling back and whitewashing the results of a police investigation into allegations of state meddling in the 2012 presidential campaign. The main opposition Democratic Party is furious and is demanding key figures in President Park's cabinet resign and a parliamentary probe be launched into the case. The ruling Saenuri Party says it's not open to launching an investigation into the matter. With the interpellation session kicking off on Monday, the National Assembly is expected to be locked in a political standoff with the Democratic Party demanding an investigation into the acquittal. The Democratic Party has also submitted motions to dismiss the Minister of Justice Hwang Kyo-won's for his role in the state probe into the government agency's alleged interference in the 2012 presidential election. The party is also demanding dismissal of the Minister of Education Son Nam-soo for defending right-wing high school history textbooks. The party is also planning on submitting another motion for the dismissal of Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Hyun Oh-seok as the government investigation on the biggest personal information leak in the nation's history comes to an end. Prime Minister Chung Oh-won and cabinet members will be in attendance for foreign, unification, and national security interpellation sessions. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The government and the two main political parties have begun discussions on how to implement President Park's basic pension program, one of the cornerstones of her election campaign pledge. Citing the need to maintain fiscal soundness and lower the financial burden, the welfare minister and two ruling party lawmakers said 70% of the lowest income bracket, aged 65 and older, should be given up to $185 a month, depending on the period of their national pension membership. The two opposition lawmakers, on the other hand, said President Park should pay 80% of the lowest income bracket the full $185 a month without any conditions. The involved parties plan to reach a deal by next Thursday and to pass a related bill during this month's parliamentary session. Former Japanese Health Minister Yoichi Masuzoe has been elected governor of Tokyo, easily beating his two nearest rivals who had said Japan could do without nuclear energy. Masuzoe, who was heavily supported by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe throughout the campaign, was declared the victor in exit polls on public broadcaster NHK minutes after voting closed on Sunday. The ballot was widely seen as a test for Japan's public opinion on atomic power, as the two defeated candidates had vowed to end the country's reliance on nuclear power in the wake of the Fukushima nuclear disaster. In a victory speech, Masuzoe stressed that Tokyo needs electricity, saying that while the Fukushima disaster was devastating, Japan had to reduce its dependence on nuclear power gradually. A former Japanese prime minister who apologized for Japan's colonization and wartime atrocities against Korea will visit Seoul this week. Representative Chung Jin-soo of Korea's minor opposition Justice Party confirmed on Sunday that Tomiichi Murayama would be arriving for a 3-day visit on Tuesday and that he intends to meet with President Park Geun-hye. The presidential office has yet to confirm the two will meet, but watchers say a meeting could serve to ease territorial and historical tensions between the two countries. Attention is also focused on whether Murayama will convey current Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's position to President Park. During his trip, Murayama will speak at the National Assembly on Korea-Japan relations on Wednesday and will meet with Lee Hee-ho, the wife of late President Kim Dae-jung, on the last day of his trip.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. Iran has agreed to take further steps over the next 3 months to ease fears over its nuclear program. The deal reached between Tehran and the International Atomic Energy Agency on Sunday lays out several practical measures but does not include a visit to the Parchin military site, which the West and Israel suspect has been used as a nuclear bomb testing site. Kim Min-ji reports.
Iran has agreed to take more steps to diffuse international concern over its nuclear program. After 2 days of technical talks in Tehran, Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency reached an agreement Sunday on 7 practical measures to be implemented by May 15th. Among the new measures aimed at enhancing transparency over Iran's nuclear motives and suspicions of its past work on atomic weapons, Iran has promised to provide information about why it wants to develop detonators. The IAEA is probing into possible military elements to Tehran's nuclear work, something Iran has denied. Iran will also provide managed access to the Sakhan uranium mine in Yazd, which is believed to produce some 60 tons of powdered uranium a year. Other steps include providing information and managed access to the Arirang concentration plant and following the IAEA safety recommendations for the IR-40 reactor, which is capable of producing plutonium. The deal, however, does not permit inspections of the Parchin military site, which has long been suspected of being a nuclear bomb testing site. The latest development comes as Iran is set to return to the negotiating table for talks with the P5+1 nations of the US, Russia, China, France, Britain, and Germany this month to strike a permanent nuclear agreement, following the framework for cooperation that was agreed between the parties in November last year. Under that deal, Tehran promised to cease all enrichment above 5%, neutralize its stockpile near 20%, and give greater access to nuclear inspectors in exchange for relief from partial economic sanctions. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
At least 600 people, mostly women and children, were allowed to leave the besieged Syrian city of Homs Sunday, escaping from hunger and isolation for the first time in more than a year. The Syrian government and rebel forces agreed on a 3-day humanitarian pause that began last Friday. United Nations and the Syrian Red Crescent carried out the evacuation operations. Humanitarian workers also succeeded in delivering aid to parts of the city despite the threat of mortar attacks and gunfire. Authorities said 250 food packages, 190 hygiene kits, and medicine made it inside. And on a much lighter note, if you're tired of receiving spam and suspicious text messages on your cell phone, you may be in luck. Mobile carriers and internet firms here in Korea have released a host of smart applications that identify and block fraudulent texts and calls. Our Jung-in shows us more.
Many SMS messages these days include online links or other attachments that can be opened with a single touch. However, upon closer inspection, this particular text message installs malicious software on your phone, which can steal your personal information and even make illegal charges. In order to combat these so-called phishing attacks, local wireless carriers have released free smartphone applications that alert users of suspicious phone numbers and texts. These new apps are increasingly effective as they leverage a huge database, which is constantly updated by millions of users who report spam messages.
This application is very convenient when I receive messages or invitations for things like birthdays. It helps me filter them, so I'm able to trust the mobile texts that I get from acquaintances.
Other smartphone services notify you of incoming calls from telemarketers and corporate call centers. The smarter caller ID allows you to see comments and ratings by other people who are also called by the same number.
Through these call information services, we've identified large inconveniences and come up with various improvements. We hope to further improve customer services with these calling services.
The demand for such services has risen sharply in light of Korea's massive credit data leak and the evolving nature of high-tech financial crimes. And although these innovative apps don't represent a final solution, they're helping to protect consumers one call at a time. Jung-in, Arirang News.
And staying with the team ladies figure skating event, where despite the late hours, figure skating fans in Korea were up watching Mao Asada compete during the short program, knowing Kim Yeon-ah will be facing off against her next week as well. And despite the Japanese media saying that she has no problems with the triple axel during practice, it was her signature technique that brings her down as she falls during her triple axel attempt. And with the mistake, she finishes third with the final score of 64.07, with Akiko Suzuki taking over for her during the free skating program. And finishing things off, let's take a look at the Sochi Winter Olympics medal count so far. Now taking a look here, first off, Norway in the lead with 2 gold medals, 1 silver and 4 bronze for a total of 7 medals, with the Netherlands in second thanks to their medals in the speed skating events. Now the U.S. off to a great start as well in third place, where Russia tied with Canada in fourth as they win their first gold medal in the team figure skating event. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Monday morning to you. I'm Lee Jee-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, temperatures dropped overnight and daily low in Seoul is starting out at -5 today, and the snow was flowing down early this morning in the Seoul metro area, so please watch out for the icy and slippery roads on your morning commute. But afternoon highs will reach to positive side in most regions. And yes, it snowed on and off in the capital area on the weekend, but parts of eastern coast, especially in KWON, in some parts received over 1 meter over the weekend, and it's forecasted to snow till this evening, so the total accumulation will likely to increase. But the rest of the country can expect a few passing clouds as the day goes on, but it should remain sunny and dry all day long. And it looks like cold temperatures will ease as the week progresses, and there aren't any chances of neither snow nor rain this week for most area. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is at -5 and will get up to 4. Daegu and Gwangju should wake up to low of -1 and -3 and see a high of 4 and 6 respectively, while Busan should top out at 5 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will climb up to 5, Daejeon will rise to 4, while the top temperature on Mot Kumgang will be at -11. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Enjoy your morning commute and hope you have a wonderful day.
And those are the stories we have for you this hour. Thank you for being with us.